So you read the title right. King actually died in One Punch Man because he was killed by Garou. And that might anger some of you. And if it does, I'm actually kind of glad, because that means we've come a long way since I guess I kind of started the modern King is strong movement. Because when I first started talking about that stuff like 4 years ago, it was like extremely polarizing. And I guess it's become more acceptable nowadays because since I've made those videos, big YouTuber X, Y, or Z has made a video pretty much saying what I had already said. So just keep in mind, if anybody is like a true fan of King, not just a fan of him for the views, it's definitely me. So I think it's fine that if I say, you know, maybe the hype wasn't entirely justified. But let me explain how King died here and what it ultimately means. But also, guys, if you like my One Punch Man content, please subscribe if you haven't already. It's fine if you don't want to, but if you just needed a reminder, here you go. Thanks. So after Garou receives the power of God and becomes his avatar, he gains the knowledge of the flow of all energy and the behavior of all forces in the universe. And with this, he becomes so powerful that he just starts emitting cosmic radiation from his being. And this is like essentially whether he likes it or not. And this cosmic radiation is so devastating that him just simply being in the presence of people for like seconds causes them to succumb to radiation sickness. Some faster than others, as we've seen, since Silverfang, the beast that he was/is, was able to hold off for like pretty long time before ultimately dying. Flashy Flash as well, he was able to beast through it for a little bit too. But also me claiming that these characters are dying is also probably going to be problematic because it's never outright confirmed that these characters have died. But in my opinion, I'm pretty sure they did, because one character who is confirmed to have died is Terrio, because in chapter 168, when we see Garou and Saitama come back to Earth in the final moments of their fight, Saitama himself confirms that Terrio is straight up dead as a result of being exposed to Garou's cosmic radiation. And I'm assuming that since he died, then that means that everyone else we see in a similar state to him has probably died as well. But hey guys, real quick, GamerSup's Christmas in July sale has started today, and it's going to be running till the 31st. And one of the main things that I see here is that if you spend $35, you get a free Shark Girl cup. This is like a really good deal, actually. So check out my link in the description, or you can just use code BIGZ. And while you're there, maybe pick up some strawberry lemonade GamerSups or some peach tea. These are currently what I'm drinking, but they have other great flavors too. Thanks, guys. But this also leads to you maybe thinking, well, Terrio was just a regular kid. Of course he was going to die. That doesn't mean that the other adults or even strong heroes were dead. And that's a solid argument, because to be honest, I myself wasn't even sure if they were dead or not before chapter 168. Because in chapter 166, when Blast shows up to confront Garou, he says, "Take a look. Humans cannot tolerate the cosmic radiation you emit. If they have no resistance to it like I do, they will all die from you just being here." And we see them all in not a good state. And like I said, I wasn't sure if they were dead or if they were just knocked out, and there was still a chance that they could come back possibly. But given that Terrio was confirmed to be dead, I think it's safe to assume that everyone here is dead as well. And this was even before the Black Rain had started to fall. The Black Rain is kind of like a phenomenon that happens from nuclear fallout, and we see it happen later on in chapter 166. And once that does, we see another montage of presumably dead heroes and other onlookers around, and one of them is King. And considering that King ostensibly is pretty much a normal person, he's not like a super buffed up hero with any kind of special abilities on the surface, he for sure would be a top candidate to have straight up died here. But to King's credit, he did go down trying to protect Tatsumaki and Fubuki from the Black Rain. But nonetheless, he did die here, at least in my opinion, which means that he isn't infallible, and he definitely isn't disaster level God. One of the arguments that I had made before, because he may have possibly had some kind of supernatural meta-luck ability, because certainly if he did, he would have gotten out of this situation in some way or another, right? Something would have happened to shown that he was somehow immune to this, or a particular set of circumstances would have occurred to have him avoid this entirely. But no, he is shown here to be susceptible just like everyone else and pretty much die. Which means that, like I said, Garou killed King. And this sequence right here is kind of gonna make me, from this point on, kind of pull back from holding King in such high regard, at least on the power scale. I still love King as a character, and I think he's one of the best battle manga characters, period. But I think this more so should allow us to have more of a realistic look on him. But also, going back to everyone dying here, I hope this scratches the itch for a lot of you out there that says no one dies in One Punch Man. Because, you know, this is like a majority of the cast dying here. And if this stayed the way that it was, I don't think it would have made the series any better going forward. And actually, it's kind of fun to speculate about what could have happened if this timeline were to have continued. Like, Saitama for sure would have been very different going forward, but I also assumed that Drive Knight probably would have tried to take over at this point. And if that statement confuses and or angers you, understandable. But I'm not going to go too much into it in this video, but you can always watch this one if you're curious about the truth of Drive Knight. But anyway, that brings us to this timeline ultimately not continuing, because once Garou realizes that Terrio had died because of him, he realizes the error in his ways, and he teaches Saitama how to time travel, using the abilities that God had given him by manipulating subatomic particles. And Saitama eventually goes back to the moment of where Garou is about to release his cosmic radiation on the public, but he winds up zero punching him before that can happen, and the power leaves Garou and everything is back to normal, and everyone is alive once again. And I guess at this point you could do some mental gymnastics and say, well, that's King's meta luck in action there. That was the series of events that happened to make sure that King would eventually live. And it's like, okay, if you want to think that, you can. But until we get more information on how time works in the One Punch Man world, I at least assume that it's kind of working the way that it does an Endgame, as to where there's not like one singular timeline, as to where like if you go back in time, you're essentially going to a different reality. I mean, there was another Saitama in that timeline when he came back after all, right? Because that's like the most realistic way of time travel even working, right? And I say realistic loosely, because if you talk to like some theoretical physicists, they're just going to say it's impossible regardless. But yeah, so that's why Garou killed King and a majority of the cast as well. And while it was technically undone by the whole time travel stuff, it did happen. Like, these characters did die. And also, I don't think this completely deflates King as a character. Like I said, he's still great. And I won't go into spoilers, but he is still going to have some awesome moments going forward in the series. But I just don't think we should hold him in the disaster level god realm of power anymore. But that's pretty much it for the video. Let me know what you think about this one in the comments. And if you liked it, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.